Good evening, Sounder fans, and welcome to the Flat Stick Pub right here in Pioneer Square. My name is Matt Johnson, and kind of excited about this evening. Kind of a 60-minute pregame show slash kind of a preview of the season. I'm with Pete Fewing, Danny Jackson, and Wade Weber. And here at the Flat Stick Pub, if you head on down, right now they're playing bingo, so I'm kind of a little antsy that I'm missing out on the bingo. But at 7 p.m., they will switch to the Seattle Sounders versus Santa Tecla FC in El Salvador. Thanks to Go90.com. If you're listening to us and can't make it down to the Flat Stick Pub in Pioneer Square, Go90.com. I've been watching it the last couple days. Wade Weber would be proud of me as I'm watching 2 or 3 Champions League matches on Tuesday and Wednesday. Go90.com, great quality. And that's where we'll be watching your Sounders FC taking on Santa Tecla FC. Good evening to the three of you.
Matt, always great seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you, Wade. Peter?
Yes, Matthew, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Pete.
Fired up.
Pete, you can hit me on the thigh, on the knee as
good.
much as you want, all
Perfect,
right?
perfect.
We're not doing a game. Just don't get the pen involved. You know, don't start hitting me with the pen.
I understand.
Let's start with tonight's game, you guys, because obviously we've been just handed the starting lineup. And Brian Schmetzer, I want your thoughts on Brian Schmetzer's decision. 4-2-3-1 that we see with Brian, game in and game out. Stephen Fry in goal. A new man, McCrary, playing right back. Marshall, Alfaro, Waylon Francis, holding Christian Roldan, Jordi Delem. On the right, in the middle, Henry Wingo, Nicholas Ladero, Ship on the left, Morris up top. We'll start with you, Pete Fewing. Your thoughts on that starting 11, the strength of it, his decisions, and we'll get to the bench in a moment.
Well, it certainly makes sense because they know that lineup. They know the roles. You've got guys, Marshall has been such a stalwart guy there, and then you put Roldan in front of him. Those two guys will anchor the middle of the park at the back, the middle of the park a little further up. Where I look at this and I say, okay, this is a great opportunity for Harry Ship. Harry Ship came in last year and never quite got his, got it going to a place where he was going to be a regular. And then Henry Wingo, what a great opportunity for Henry Wingo as well. Jordan Morris, we've heard great things. He's been doing well in the preseason, couple goals, and so it's exciting that they are playing. It's exciting that they are getting new guys opportunities. The bench has some experience on it, so if they need to make changes, Brian has weapons on the bench as well. I know they've talked about 4-4-2 at times, but the 4-2-3-1 is what the team knows.
And the tactics when you go on the road in a cup tie where you're home and away, the Sounders want to come back with a positive result, win the game, and then you can manage next week. But to do that, you have to make sure there's enough experience on the field. And Fry in goal, right down the spine, Fry in goal, Marshall, Roldan, who we think of as a veteran. I realize he's quite young, but starting his 4th MLS season, Ladero and further up the field, Jordan Morris, again, young but experienced MLS Cup under his belt. I think that's the key. The guys on the edges, I'm curious to see how McCrary and Francis do in their competitive debuts for Seattle. And then, of course, I think you're spot on with Harry Ship. He actually, by the end of the year, I think had worked his way back in, partially through injury. I mean, there were some guys out injured. But Danny, it's, when you go on the road, the mentality that you take can be driven from the coach, it can be driven from the players. I think there's a mixture of both for this game.
Well, of course, the last game on the road was Toronto, and it wasn't a great performance. I think they'll take that in terms of the mentality, how you address a game, how do you approach a game. I think getting after this team early, it was something that didn't happen against Toronto. They sat back, they absorbed. It was too long. They couldn't get going. I agree. I think the spine of that team is extremely strong. But if I look at the individuals, somebody like an Alfaro, it's a big year for him, right? He's been with the squad for a couple of years. Torres is kind of in and out with fitness. They may bring a central defender back in. But another injury can happen. He's your main guy. So this is a big evening for him in a pressurized situation, in a big game. Can he perform? Can McCrary step up and give Brian confidence in his ability with Leerdam out for a period of time? And then you look at the Francis coming out of Columbus and the opportunity today to play with Nuhu. Nuhu was kind of the penciled-in guy, but that's going to be a competition. So I think those guys who can establish themselves, especially in the next 2 to 3 months, there's going to be lots of opportunities. Tonight it starts with the game.
Danny, I want your thoughts. McCrary, Jordan McCrary, we pick up, played in Toronto, made only 2 starts, and those were U.S. Open Cup starts. He was drafted in 2016, 10th overall by New England. He went to TFC, not 1 start now. That's a pretty good team. That was a record-breaking team, so you can kind of understand the appearances. No appearances last year. and no starts for Henry Wingo. Your thoughts on not only their chance, but now they also have a chance to show the coaching staff.
I agree, and I think the young kids, they have a lot to learn. They're probably around environments. Wingo around this environment with the players. Then McCrary in Toronto, the players that he could learn from. But I always look at it, when you miss out on a year at that age, that's a lot of development you have to catch up. So the question is, are they going to be 2 steps back and then are they playing catch up? Or they fired up, as you always say, Pete, fired up to kind of push it and then perform in an environment like this and an opportunity with the Sounders.
Wade, the mixture of the veterans, Pete alluded to it, the mixture of the veterans and the youngsters. It might be a big season for Tony Alfaro, but he doesn't have a lot of minutes under his belt.
Right.
And you touch on Wingo and McCrary for me.
Well, it's curious for me that Wingo, as a local kid and as a homegrown, first competitive start for the team, right? So to do that on the road in the Champions League in a competition this club desperately wants to win, it's a chance for him to show something. We could talk about who's not playing for Seattle. We could talk about the rotation of the squad, but the fact is, when you're a pro and your number is called and you're given the opportunity to start, it is time for you to step forward and demonstrate that you're not a kid. You're not someone to get spot minutes at the end of a game. You're not just a fill-in. And McCrary, I'd say the same thing that you said about Alfaro. I'd say it about McCrary. It's time now. It is time now. You can't think, well, when Leardom's in and playing, then I'm going to be the backup and I'll be happy with that. You have a very short career, Pete, if that's your approach to being a pro.
Absolutely, and this is where I think Brian Schmetzer is a genius, because when you look at this the first time, you say, well, that's an interesting lineup, and it's a lot of new guys. But you want energy on the road, and you want guys to be fired up. And you're right. Tony Alfaro, when he came in, did quite well. I thought his worst game was against West Ham, I thought he was a little bit sluggish. But in his MLS games, his first year, he was good. But he wasn't good enough and consistent enough for Brian to keep him in the lineup. So there's a lot of guys out there. Henry Wingo gets that message, and certainly Harry Shipp gets that too.
I think Fisher and Kovar are 2 players that we talked about last year about the big year, and they didn't perform. They didn't take that next step. Those guys now, this is the point in the season where they have to really kick on.
Henry Wingo, 22 years of age, Jordy DeLem, 24, and McCrary, 24. You're listening to, Matt, Pete, Wade, and Danny on SoundersFC.com as we get you ready for Leg 1, Seattle Sounders FC versus Santa Tecla FC from El Salvador. Again, the best view for you would be to go go90.com. Excellent quality. Hit go90.com right at 7 p.m. And that first leg, of course, this evening. Next Thursday, March 1st, we're back at home. CenturyLink Field, 7 p.m. If you haven't got your tickets yet, SoundersFC.com. We'll see who the opponent might be, but let's just worry about Santa Tecla. But let's not forget March 4th, LAFC is the home opener, and that just is a few minutes away. 5th appearance in the Champions League for the Seattle Sounders. The best result was in 2012 and 13. The format has changed since then, and the Sounders made it to the semifinals before losing to Santos Laguna 2-1 on aggregate. Prior to that, one round, Seattle was the first MLS club, and it seems like so long ago, first MLS club to beat a Mexican squad when they took care of Tigres 3-2 on aggregate. Pete, I want you to talk about, we played as late as possible, the MLS Cup final. We were playing the earliest as possible.
Yeah.
We saw that last year. We talked about that. Brian talked about that, a little bit of a hangover, but also legs, a little bit weary legs. You remember that it was Brad and Chad who went to the American camp right away. They had maybe 10 days off, 2 days,
Right.
2 weeks off. We're saddled with the same exact circumstances, minus probably 3 more weeks. What is that going to do, and what does Brian and Dutra and the rest of the coaching staff have to worry about?
Well, this is the second go-around of this, because winning the first MLS Cup, it was a very short off season, and now they're in the second one, so I'm sure that they have figured out ways to recover quicker using their support staff. How do they get the bodies back as quickly as possible, get them as much rest as possible? The fact that he's going to rotate so many players in the beginning is part and parcel because of the short turnaround. Having said all that, Danny mentioned it off air, when you play for Brian Schmetzer, you are not allowed to take a game off. So there are no excuses, right? They will, and again, I look at this young lineup that has so many guys given an opportunity. If they take advantage of the opportunity by bringing the energy, they'll be successful tonight. But I do think that it's a short window, but they have experienced that short window.
I think that experience is important. It's not a team of kids. It's a team of veterans who do need time off. Let's be honest, It's a long season. It's pretty grueling. They had some injuries at the end of the year. But how much time do you need, Pete? Right?
Well,
so
Danny and I did
6 weeks.
Danny and I did an hour-and-a-half post-game show after the Toronto game, and I feel sharp. I feel good tonight, so I have recovered.
Yeah, but
I don't know how Danny feels.
but it
you don't want to speak for Jackson.
Yeah.
Every player plays to win championships. They Christian Roldan might think this is normal, but in his first 3 seasons, he's lost in heartbreaking fashion to FC Dallas.
Yep.
He has won an MLS Cup. He's lost in another MLS Cup. He's now playing in the Champions League. He's been called into the national team. This is a player that wants to get back on the field. So I think the key to this whole thing, Matt, to sort of go back to that original question, is it comes down to Brian Schmetzer having a deep enough squad to be able to rotate. 6 games in 25 days, Danny, and you can't do that with 13 guys.
Last year was Brian's first preseason as a head coach in the MLS. Second year this year. So I think he's going to learn from last year. He's mentioned that in interviews. He's going to speak to his trainers, his staff, the guys around him. Preki is a fresh voice in this squad. I think it's an important voice for Jordan Morris, for other players like that. He's going to come in and bring a different energy. I know people have spoken highly of that. So I think Brian's additional year of experience, having gone through that short turnaround already, what he learned last year, will help the team and the squad this year.
And we're here because of tonight's first leg versus Santa Tecla in the CONCACAF Champions League. And CONCACAF, Wade, how important should we feel about it? What is the stepping stone for MLS to move forward to take on Liga MX? And, the whole deal, you know what I mean? It just seems like, boy, we're playing tonight? I'm so jacked up and fired up for LAFC on the 4th at 2 p.m., but all of us are just soccer junkies, nerds, right? Geeks that, hey, our team's playing tonight, so let's get behind it. What is your thought on CONCACAF Champions League?
The Champions League in its current format essentially mirrors the European Champions League, which is the most prestigious club competition on earth. It's the biggest profile, the most money. CONCACAF's not there, obviously, but in order to be the best league, and the MLS has ambition, you have to be the best in your region, right? And because no MLS team has lifted the trophy of the competition in its current format, it remains. It's not the Holy Grail, right? That's a little too big, right? But it is the elusive thing that RSL nearly won it a couple of years ago. I think it's achievable this year. I think the quality of Toronto FC, the quality of Seattle. You've got 2 teams who, on their day, can beat any team in the hemisphere, right? They've demonstrated that. But when is your day? It's about showing up in a place like El Salvador on a Thursday night. Can you do the job? So next week you can manage the lineup. You don't have to stretch guys. Pete, the Mexican teams that MLS are chasing have bigger budgets. They're not dealing with the salary caps that MLS is. But the time is now.
Absolutely. I think about the 90 room just underneath the Sounders headquarters, and they've got those U.S. Open Cups. They've got the Supporters Shield. They have the MLS Cup. The one thing that's missing in the trophy case is something from Champions League. Also, MLS has made a statement that they are trying to improve as a league. The TAM money has gone from $1.4 to $2.8 million. So where does that show up in the world's game? It shows up in advancing further in the Champions League.
Well, I also think Garth mentioned the salary cap, as you mentioned, has doubled in the last 2.5 years. That's big. You can start to compete with bringing players like Ladero up from South America. They come all the way up to Seattle now versus stopping off at a Club America or a Chivas, something like that. I think it's the evolution of this game and the development of this game, not just to the players who compete on a day-to-day basis, growing up to see these teams compete in the North American hemisphere and Central America, but it's also the audience watching and listening, who are educated about this game now, who are listening and learning, get this game of soccer. It's like, okay, we can talk about this all day long, compete with Europe, compete with teams around and clubs around in Europe, but can they compete with their neighbor? That's the big question. They haven't proved it quite yet on a consistent basis. It happens once in a while, but can they do it on a consistent basis?
And don't forget, the winner of this competition enters the World Club Championship. right? If you ever want to say that you're the best in the world at anything, you have to beat everybody else in the world, and you win this tournament, and suddenly you've got that carrot. Now, Barcelona or whoever's going to come out of Europe, that's a tall ask. The budget's a little bigger, but it's the next step. It's the next step. It's not going to happen overnight. MLS has grown so much since 1996, but can they start to take that next step and consistently win the CONCACAF Champions League?
Here's what I love about the Seattle Sounders. Adrian Hanauer is a very motivated man. Garth Lagerwey, Joe Roth, Drew Carey, the ownership group wants to see this happen. The coaches want to see this happen. Look at the staff. I know we'll talk about the staff in a little bit, but look at the staff that they have. They're not going to be satisfied with they've already checked a couple boxes. They want to check those boxes again, the MLS Cup, the Open Cup, the Supporters Shield, but this is a box they want to check.
That's Pete Fewing, Wade Weber, Danny Jackson. My name's Matt Johnson, and we are at the Flat Stick Pub in Pioneer Square getting ready for Leg 1. Seattle Sounders in El Salvador taking on Santa Tecla FC. Danny, let's keep it right there. A couple years ago, I remember the match versus Santos Laguna. We were second best.
Yep.
Club America, they had some powerful dudes on that team, and they were fun to watch because then I watched them for their next step, and they were just better. How close are we?
I think we're getting closer. I think a lot of that to do is with Brian Schmetzer. I think it is that level of confidence going on the field and feeling not inferior. And when you watch those teams come through, their chests were pushed out. They were an inch or two tall just by pure confidence. They walked around that field. They owned the field. And I think now with the confidence that we have, with the success we've had over the last couple of years, with Brian Schmetzer and his ability to communicate and have that strong Alex Ferguson type skill of man management, he can give those players the confidence to go out in the field. And it doesn't just come in with rah-rah, screaming at a guy 5 minutes before going out. It's that consistent messaging, arm around the shoulder, kick up the backside once in a while. Whatever that player needs to maximize their potential to go out in the field on a Saturday or on a Tuesday night or on a Thursday night and perform. And I think for players who have the right coaches in place and the club supporting that coaching staff is that you know that coach supports you. So you can go out there and take a chance. You can make a mistake and it's okay. And I think that's the big thing about coaching and Brian Schmetzer is that, hey, go try something. We'll guide you, we'll help you. But it's okay to make a mistake. We've got to learn from it and we've got to push forward.
I think we all know Brian, and he won't allow excuses to creep into anything. There is no excuse for this, that, or the other. You have to accept that we prepared the way we prepared, and we got the result we deserved. And he never blames officials or anything like that. I think that's magnificent. And I'm going to make an excuse for MLS in the past. And this is a reason why Brian is going to help the Sounders get past that. The Sounders are starting their season, and the Mexican clubs are not. They're beginning the second phase of their season. Santa Tecla has played 8 games in the Clausura. They're in third place in the Salvadoran Primera Division. There you go, Pete. And they're ready. They're ready.
Yeah.
And the Sounders are at a disadvantage. MLS teams are at a disadvantage because of the calendar. Brian is the coach that will not allow his team to go into a match thinking anything other than what a great opportunity for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great point. And it's also for those players, you think about what those players on the other side are thinking. They're thinking this might be their opportunity to come to MLS. They know that the Sounders have 2 on their roster spot. They know that opportunity that when you're watching a game, you might say, hey, I like that guy over there. So they're going to be the Sounders are going to be facing a very difficult task today. But you're right, Brian. It's been really fun to watch him, especially with Preki.
Yep.
When you were talking about how he walks around the field,
yeah.
He walks around the field at training. He does walk like Alex Ferguson. He walks around and he manages everything. He's got a great. I know we're going to talk about him in a minute, but yeah, you're right. He will put them in the right frame of mind, and you're right, Wade. There will not be excuses accepted.
He's also mentioned in interviews, and Matt, you could probably quote me better than I can, but he's mentioned preseason's been preparation for Champions League. Yeah. I think those words are really important. It's not preseason's preparation for LAFC. It's the Champions League. We're prepping for this first game because it's important to the club. Garth Lagerwey got to the final in 2011. He gets it. It's important for him. It's been important for him in his career as well. So why not kind of add, I think, that additional piece of the puzzle where you can be successful through the continent.
No team in Major League Soccer has been better in the domestic cup competition than the Sounders since they joined MLS in 2009. They have 4 Open Cups. They've lifted the trophy 4 times, right? So this is a cup competition. That's all it is. The league is 34 games. It's a marathon. You don't have to win it. You have to get in the playoffs, but you manage that. So the emphasis right now, Danny, you're exactly right, is let's win this cup. It's something this club has done and will continue, I think, to do very well at.
Sounders obviously qualified for this Champions League by winning the cup in 2016. Santa Tecla back-to-back championships. It's a different, as Wade points out, they are 8 matches into their season. They won at Clausura and Apertura, and they're back-to-back. And they don't necessarily win their division. They've come in second and third, and they move in through a red robin. That's funny, Pete.
Yeah, round robin.
Yeah, round robin.
Yeah. You were close.
Come on, you are all business. You don't laugh at Red Robin?
I'm focused.
Yeah, you are. A round robin tournament, and they do well in those, and they've won back-to-back championships. Thus, they host this first leg. Sounders next Thursday at CenturyLink Field. Again, tickets on sale at SoundersFC.com. Here we are. We are 45 minutes away from this competition, but I want to go back. And we'll start, Danny, with you. I want to go back to the way last season ended. I thought Stefan Frei said it best, I believe, just 3 days ago, where he said he was happy with the way the team digested the loss. To me, that screams, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but took ownership, realized what happened. There's no denial there. We were second best. And without Stefan Frei at the end of the first half, it could have been 3-0. You were all in Toronto. We saw the same thing. He came up. He didn't want to be. His quote prior to that match was, he doesn't want to be MVP again.
Yep.
I don't want to be MVP. I want Ladero. I want Morris. I want Dempsey. Anyways, he's happy with the way the team has digested that loss. From the outside, you guys have played in big matches, all 3 of you. What needs to be done when you got your butt kicked in a big one, and maybe you had a few weeks, maybe you had 4 days, doesn't matter. What needed to be done for you, Danny, and in the locker room to move forward and play your best?
You've got to learn from it, but learning is with specific points, right? You don't want to overconsume the players with too much information. You want to outline a couple of points and then focus on those. I think look at it from a standpoint of they were second best or everything from the first minute. We talked about those stats at the end of the game, tackles lost or competitive kind
duels.
Duels lost,
yes.
right? And we called it out, and then Brian called it out in the press conference post-game. That is something that Brian's not going to accept. You've got to compete, especially away from home. You've got to do the basics. You've got to tackle, you've got to compete, you've got to fight for every ball, you've got to win second balls. I also think the 4-4-2 in that diamond formation is a shift from what he saw, because in a game where things aren't going your way, you go, in my opinion, it's 3 things. Personnel. Do we have enough personnel on the bench to change a game? Probably not, in the depth and the breadth of what the MLS has. Formation change. That is going to change the game to some extent. Go from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-4-2, add a second guy up front, you push the game further up the field, or a tactical change. Do you post a big guy like an Andy Carroll, right? A big post guy, and you just bomb the ball up to a Will Bruin, fight for the ball there, pick up the second balls in the attacking third, and then go from there. It didn't really do any of that. And I think that's what Brian probably looked at in the offseason and said, when games aren't going right, how do we shift and change to change the flow, to unbalance the offense and the other team? Because look at Michael Bradley. He was a guy possessed. He was after every single ball. He won everything. But how do you knock a guy like that off kilter?
So let me interrupt. Are you saying then now Brian's got an option for when things –
Yes.
We all heard the same thing at halftime. Post-game at halftime they said, all right, wipe that out. Here we're going to reset, rinse and repeat, and here's what we're going to do. Well, really, the tactics weren't much different because the depth wasn't there. Right. We were a bit beat up, but that's no excuse because Toronto was better. So you're saying it from the coaching side of things, here's what you can do.
Which, I agree. I think the coaches look at it because it comes from them. They have to make the change, a tactical change, a formational change in a game, and that inspires confidence in the team. I think it's a combination. I think Brian's giving them the tools to perform without excuses, as we mentioned
But
before.
let me go back. Now answer the question, what do you do moving forward as a player? what happens in the locker room. Stephen Fry, I think, is a leader on the team.
Yep.
He is. Christian Roldan. These guys that can say something. I saw Christian Roldan scream at a player in Tucson, and that was new to me.
Yep.
I hadn't seen that. So, Wade, then from the player's standpoint.
Yeah, like once you get in the locker room, there's I'm not going to compare it to death. Well, maybe I will. There's grieving. Yeah, you got to get over it, but you got to go through the stages. You might be angry. You might be disappointed. There's all sorts of things you'll be feeling, but you have to get over it. And then the most important thing is you have to be honest. You have to look at it. You have to be honest. And the Sounders coming out of that experience in Toronto, second experience in Toronto, they can't claim they deserve to win, right? It's all right.
No,
So-
it wasn't a bad bounce or a bad call or a PK.
it wasn't a fluke. You can't blame the ref.
Is that
nothing
better
like that.
sometimes?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think because
No.
ultimately, I know I've made this observation. We put a lot of importance on the role the coaches play in preparing a team to play. Pete, I don't know about you, and you are an exceptional coach, multiple championships, different level, the whole thing.
Thank you.
However,
Yeah.
I never thought the coach won the game for me.
No.
I always
No.
took that was my fault.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
the coach
yeah.
didn't make that mistake on the field.
If you're a
right?
leader, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and so that's my that how you get over it, how you look forward to next year is you have to be honest. You have to literally put it behind you. All right, we lost. We fight the whole season to get in the final, and we did it, and we blew it. All right, well, guess what?
Yeah, yeah.
Guess what? We're back.
Okay, so let's go to the coach. You want the players to absorb that,
Right.
Yeah. On the flight home, it doesn't matter. I'm not picking on Sounders and who I think took it the hardest or who I don't think took it very hard. That's not what I mean. So as a coach, you want the players to absorb that. Stephen Fry is to me a very articulate, a deep thinking,
Artistic,
very artistic
Yeah.
also. But he's a deep thinker, so he's going to go back and say, man. A, B, C, D. He's going to go through the alphabet a couple times.
Right.
As a coach, not necessarily to Danny's point about tactics, because that's spot on. As a coach, what do you want those players to be thinking about?
Yeah, you want them to think about it. We went through this with Seattle U this year. We beat the Huskies in the first round of the playoffs. 3 days later, we're at Akron, and they thump us. And we lost 3-0. Late goal. So I'd like to think it was 2.5, right? But it was.
God bless you.
Yeah. But I walk in after the game, and Akron loves their soccer. Great crowd. 15 people in the interview room, and Matt, I thought of you because I walked in and they got cameras and they said, "What are your thoughts?" And I thought, because you said this on an early radio show, 2009, I just looked at and I said, "They were better."
Yeah.
And everybody sort of went. You could feel that the press said, "Yeah, they were. They killed you." And so, but what you want is when I'm doing that, we want the players in the locker room. We want the Stephen Frys and the Chad Marshalls. We want our guys looking at each other and saying that was not good enough, right? And I think you just said it, Wade. We worked so hard to get to this game, but it's on us, right? It's on us. We gave up silly balls, right? Or we didn't close things down, or we didn't do our job. And so you want the players, and you've got to facilitate those conversations. So we have, and I know Brian does this a lot, meetings with the players, but you get them to get the ownership, the word you use, Matt, get them to buy in, and how do they fix it? And then the coaches will do their part.
And you have to trust the players knew what they had to do in the tunnel, right? They thought, okay, we're prepped, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
But the look back is, was I fully mentally prepped and ready to go? Or why did I start slow? Why didn't I adjust my game? Why didn't I look after myself, own my game versus screaming and shouting at somebody else? Brian always said that to us, said, own your own game first, then you can communicate and shout at somebody else. But you got to own your own game first. And it's adapting to what's around you, the environment, right? It's adapting. Why am I playing a ball into midfield short, 15 yards, when I'm a right back? Can't I whip the ball down the line, 40 yards, change the game up? It's those nuances, because you have to hope that players are thinking, we've got to go out and compete, we've got to compete. You got to think that, yeah, we have to go do that, but what could they have done to help themselves?
The other question the players will have to ask themselves, and they might privately, we've all played, right? There's times where one might say, hey, they wanted it more than us. How do we make sure, Seattle's coming off winning it, Wade, and
See, I can't stand that. Have
know
I
you-
told you that?
No, they
can't-
wanted it more.
I can't stand that.
But you could feel it.
I
You
cannot
could feel
stand
it.
it. I don't
Well,
think it works
I-
in any sport, and I think it's a loose cliche. Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, no, my point is,
I
is right
understand.
there.
I understand.
Matt, it's right there. There is no such thing as a wantometer that measures the amount of want.
Yeah.
Right? That device doesn't exist. Every pro wants to win. But no,
That's a new word for our show.
I love it.
I honestly think
Check
that,
your wantometers, gentlemen. We're going to play.
yeah, that it comes down to execution. It's
Yeah.
execution.
Yeah.
It's handling pressure.
Correct, but it's execution through preparedness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
but sometimes you literally you're put under pressure and you just give a bad ball, right? So you had the tactics, right? You just felt like my shoes were on backwards, and there's fatigue, there's other
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah.
But the Sounders wanted to win desperately.
Yeah, I played at a much lower level than you guys, and I was as competitive as anybody. I felt that if I'm going to be I'm going to be the most competitive out of the 22 guys at this first division
In Cash Park.
men's league. That's right, in men's league, and no one's going to get around me. And if they are, I'm going to rip them down. And so that didn't want it. There was not one Wednesday evening or Sunday morning at Linwood High School that nobody wanted it more than me. And we were just either I would roll out of my car on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. if you know what I mean, or what have you. But that and as the level goes up, I have such a scratch my head about. Now they wanted it more. No, they didn't. I think we wanted the parade. We wanted a ring.
Yep.
We wanted whatever bonus comes to everybody. There's just this thing like the ball didn't stick to Nico Ladero's foot. How come? That's so weird to me. How come the runs didn't work? How about Toronto was awesome? But it's so interesting. All three of you have different perspectives on how to bounce back. Tonight's the first game for Chad Marshall.
Yeah.
He didn't have a bad final.
No.
He didn't have a bad final. Tonight's the first game.
I think it's about being honest. It could just come. You
Yeah.
have to be honest with yourself.
That's
You have
great.
to be honest with your teammates. And if you do that, you can move on. If you don't, if you hide from it, if you
It does
never
not get
watch that game,
fixed.
then
Yeah.
it doesn't get fixed.
You mentioned about Roldan, about the experiences he's had year over year and how much success he's had. That game, I feel like, is going to be a turning point for him in his career positively because he was in the central midfield area. He wanted him to boss that midfield. Bradley bossed that midfield.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
to him I think it's going to be a moment in his career. He's going to look back and think, how could I have competed better to control this midfield to help my team win?
That's great because we'll move from that. Sorry, Pete. We'll move from that. We're at the Flat Stick Pub. Who's we? My name's Matt Johnson. Seattle U coach Pete Fewing. Assistant S2 coach Wade Weber. And then the guy that does banking or whatever down on the end.
He's got an accent,
Daddy
though.
Jackson,
Yeah.
but he was
guy with the accent.
he was the captain of the Sounders in USL years. And we're at the Flat Stick Pub at Pioneer Square. 30 more minutes for us on the air here on SoundersFC.com. Thanks so much for finding us. And then we are going to sit back and go tune in to Go90.com at 7 p.m. as the Sounders take on Santa Tecla FC from El Salvador in leg one of the CONCACAF Champions League round of 16. Next Thursday, March 1st, 7 p.m. at CenturyLink Field. If you don't have your tickets for the leg two, tickets are on sale at SoundersFC.com. Great point. Christian Roldan, that might be a springboard. That match alone. Now, Stefan Fry will say, we had a great year. 53 points, tied for Portland. Second place only on one win below Portland in Western Conference. Won the Western Conference title. But it's Jordan Morris who I also want to talk about because he just had a frustrating season. I forgot, and then I started looking back. He started the season with the bad ankle injury that just was nagging like they do. And then he ends the season with a really bad hamstring, Pete. Everybody in the club, and I mean everybody, Garth, Chris, and Brian, Chris Henderson was glowing about what he saw Jordan Morris in this preseason and kind of just how he looked and flowed on the field. I thought I saw kind of a different, kind of a sharper, kind of a guy with a bite to him down in Tucson and in Sacramento. But just the steps, the maturation process, and the next step for Jordan Morris, Pete Fewing.
Well, going back to last season, the fact that his father is the team doctor is fun, and he was probably doctor for all of us when we played. And he just said the kid's on an airplane all the time. He's playing at stop-start, and he was just exhausted. And so he finally gets a little bit of a break. I think it was Obafemi Martins who went from one season to the next, but when he got a break the next year, then he came back much fresher. Yes, exactly. So I think now having that little bit of time away, and he is a competitor who wants to prove himself. I liked what you said about what you saw about his bite and grit on the field in Arizona. Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure on that kid. And you talk about the sophomore jinx in college. That they say that's a real thing, right? Well, he kind of had his sophomore year, but you throw on the injuries, you throw on national team duty, and it made for a hard year. Now he's got a little bit of a break, a little pressure off of him, and it sounds like he's in the right mind frame. It's been fun to go see him at practice. He's happy, which he's a happy kid by nature, but he's confident too. I guess it's that it seems that he's willing to put the team on his back.
He made a move a couple weeks ago, and I thought to myself, and I don't know if I was with you, Danny, or I can't remember who was standing next to me, and I went, oh, yeah, that's how fast he is.
Yeah.
Because you kind of forget.
He sure missed it when he was not there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, and this is when I say enjoy, I'm gonna couch that in maybe I don't mean it as I would normally mean it, but I want to see him enjoy playing. I think the pressure. You say there's so much pressure. He's the hometown kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's not just Academy product, but the fact his dad's the doctor. He's Mercer Island. He's the local boy done good. National team, all of that. That relax a little. I want to see him smile occasionally on the field. Now, this is coming from a guy that didn't do that very easily, right? I was not a smiler, and maybe that's just not his personality. But I do think that if he doesn't put the weight of the world on his shoulders, like he doesn't have to carry the franchise. This is a talented team. If he doesn't do that and relaxes and enjoys his game, I think everything else almost takes care of itself. Now, I'm simplifying it for sure, but let's not. And Danny, you as an experienced player know, you bring Precky's insertion.
Yeah.
Preki was not Jordan Morris. He did not have his physical attributes.
Right.
I played against him. What a difficult guy to play against for an entirely different set of reasons. Super intelligent, crafty, took up great positions.
Yeah.
It was about what he didn't do that made him so good. Almost like jazz versus like rock and roll. And Jordan will benefit from a little bit of Preky's jazz.
Ante Razov was here, left, right? Somebody with a focus in the offensive third of the field. I look at it this way, over the last 2 years, there's been things in Jordan's game that I've been hoping and wishing he would evolve, right? Better movement off the ball. He was kind of very north-south. I'm going to beat them because of my speed and strength. Doesn't work in this league anymore. Clinical in the box. We've seen him miss a decent amount of chances over the last 2 years, especially last year with just 3 goals. Can he be balanced right and left? Can he improve his left foot? So teams aren't going to naturally say, hey, when Jordan Morris comes down the field, push him left because he's not confident with his left foot. Can he eliminate that and work on that piece of the game? And for me, the one thing I'd love to see in Jordan Morris, when I look at players like Sergio Aguero, Falcao, players who are elusive in the box, consistent, constant movement, recirculating your run. Ball doesn't come in the first time, don't get frustrated. I've seen his shoulders drop, his head drops. Boom, circle back in, get in front of the forward, go back again. I'd love to see that. And I think my last point is I agree with all you guys is play with a smile, because sometimes he does feel like the weight of the world. The ball doesn't come to him, he misses a chance. He does look demoralized. He should be like, hey, a lot of forwards just go, boom, they brush it off, they move on. If you see forwards, it's like they almost forgot what just happened like 10 seconds ago. That's what I think will make him more clinical and more effective.
We had, and I don't remember who confirmed this or even speculated on this, but when he first came out of Stanford, and he had a pretty good year there, winning the national championship, winning the Heisman Trophy, the Mac Herman Award. Yeah. And then there was a stigma of if you didn't give the ball up to Dempsey, Dempsey might either chew you out, he might look at you, he might get mad with his body language. And I think a lot of people said, yeah, Jordan Morris can't worry about that, and he did.
Sure.
And he did.
Which is understandable.
It was obvious to see. Yeah, Clint Dempsey's the man, right?
Yeah.
So you got the man from Stanford versus the man in U.S. A little bit bigger deal on a bigger stage, and that took a while, right? That took a while for Jordan Morris. And I think, and Brian has told me, he said, yeah, I want, and you know this about S2 players and guys you want to develop, I want him to be meaner. I wanted him to say, no, actually, it's my ball. He did it in Tucson a couple times. It's my ball, and I don't care how open you are. I'm the striker, and I'm going to knock it towards net.
You said it a few minutes ago that Clint, and it might have been before we went on the air, that Clint's not going to be running as much. He's going to get as close to the goal as possible. I think the better Jordan Morris plays, the longer Clint Dempsey is successful, and his career goes longer. So I think you're right. I think when Jordan comes in, and who wouldn't? When you see Clint Dempsey up front, you're going to give him the ball. You might have an open look, but you don't want to get the look from Clint, right? So you may acquiesce to Clint, but I think that the roles have changed a little bit, and I think Clint would say, yeah, Jordan, you do more of the work.
You run, and I'll put the ball over the top. Now, to that point, Oba and Clint, well, that was a special deal.
But that
right?
was
2014.
3 years ago, right?
Yeah,
no, different body.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it was different, but you saw that playmaking material from Clint that he could do. He could get the ball and put the ball and do it somehow that a lot of guys in the league can't.
Yes.
Well, I was trying to go back to Wade's jazz analogy. They had that jazz
that threw me
fusion
off.
thing going.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, one's
I might not
Billy
be on the
Cobham
same
and one's AC/DC's drummer, or one of his many drummers. You know what I mean? Like keep it simple, the whole thing. Yes, it's pressure. Yes, it's other things. But ultimately, it's about goals. It's about can the Sounders be a goal creating team, a goal converting team. And Jordan is, I know confidence is a big issue with him, or can be. He misses one, and that second one gets harder. The goal seems to shrink. This team has the talent. 10 of 11 starters back, 16 to 17 from the final. Right, it's got the talent. So now it's about Jordan understanding that the talent's here, and I don't have to be the man. But I tell you what, Danny, you know this. You don't get to be a pro if you're not an alpha.
Yep.
If you're not an alpha male, if it's my ball, right? Now, if you're a team player, you understand you have to give it up, but not when you don't need to give it up. You know, it's like so that alpha, that Jordan Morris has that in him. He was that guy at Stanford. We've seen it, so I think he's over that. I think he's over it.
I agree. I think the interesting conundrum that Brian and the whole staff's going to have is 4-2-3-1, 4-4-2. He likes playing with somebody next to him. When you think about Clint and Oba when they were successful, they were very close together. You know, yes, Dempsey was a few years younger.
Right on top of each other,
Right on
weren't
top
they?
of each other.
Yeah.
They were really close. Now Dempsey floats back, and that's just the evolution of him as a player and his age. Can they get a little closer? But the question is if they do fall into that 4-2-3-1 as their preferred formation, which has been that way for 2 years with Brian, where does he play? Where does he succeed, and where do you develop confidence in him and give him enough games to play in that position? Is it at the point as a number 9 up front with his back to goal more so than with his face to goal? Is it on the left-hand side making diagonal runs in behind? Is that his simple message from Brian is, hey, get wide, get the ball, go. Make diagonal runs in behind. Ladero, you find him. Just find him. Get him going. Get his legs going. I think that is going to be an interesting question, and a 4-4-2 is going to give him the opportunity, going back to our conversation before, as a feel-good factor Brian's going to have. He knows Jordan Morris will feel comfortable with a Dempsey or a Bruin next to him.
Okay, before we go on to that, how many goals does Jordan Morris? I can't stand predictions. I can't stand. I'm doing this.
You're gonna do it
I'm
anyway.
doing this wanta meter. But what does Jordan do? Everybody feels that staying healthy, he's back not only to double digits, but he's going to be a guy that we saw in Orlando that when it was Clint, Nico, and Jordan Morris tore up Orlando, right? I mean, that game should have been 7-6, really. But that game, Jordan was flying, and he really owned that game.
So he got 15 goals plus the West Ham game. He got 2. He got some playoff goals his rookie year, correct? 15 total plus you got 17. If I remember correctly.
One, you never do math on the air, ever. And 2, you have that written down before you come in. That's not taking a shot. I'm just because I'm going to say, I don't know, Pete.
75% of all stats are made up on the spot anyway.
Yes.
I just made that one up.
Don't question it, just go with it.
I'm living proof of that. So I'm going to say he's 15 and above.
I think he's reached the point where we can expect, it's a goal every 2 games.
Yeah.
Is like top level. If he can now he may go barren for a few, but he'll get a hat trick and get 2. I'd like to see a goal every 2 if he can. If he does that, the Sounders are in such a good spot.
Which is taller. I think the goal being for the Sounders to be number 1 this year to play a home game at the final. I think you've got to have a guy. Jordan Morris is the
18 to 20.
18 to 20, exactly. 20 goals. If you look at the teams, like the Altidores, 20 goals. If you look at the Javinkos and the Valeris, these are the guys that get you that 15 to 20 goals on a consistent basis. You have to have a guy like that. Will Bruin, wasn't quite there. Had a great year, wasn't quite there. Dempsey, I think 15 goals. Bruin, 13 goals last year. Ladero, 7 goals. Morris, 3. If you get Morris to that 15 to 20 goals and you get some delivery from a Bruin and a Dempsey and a Ladero to kind of like bolster that up, you're in great shape. And that's how you win those close games.
And if you get 4 from Chad Marshall.
Yeah.
Right? If
You
get
always
4
like your center backs to get.
But
Come
you
on.
get,
Yeah.
you get another 6 to 8 from a Roldan, right?
Yes.
You know, he got 6
Yes.
last year, I
Yeah.
believe, or something close to that.
7,
if
yeah.
you get goals from him from
Yeah.
offensive positions, you get a Torres going up and actually winning a header, you know, in the 18-yard box for a corner. Those are the things that win those games.
We talked about it a bit earlier, but does Jordan Morris to succeed need a guy next to him? Pete,
He likes it.
Wade,
No.
Danny?
Yes.
Awesome. I'd really like to
Maybe
get into
no,
it.
yes.
If you're
How about
just
that?
if
How
you're
about
just
that?
tuning in, thank you for finding us here on SoundersFC.com. Kind of a preseason, a preview of the season with Danny, Wade, and Pete. My name's Matt, but also a pregame show. And let me give you the starting lineup once again. If you don't know it already, it's been out there. I'm sure it's being tweeted about. Things like that we can't understand, Pete. Stephen Fry in goal. Jordan McCrary, your right back. Across the back line, Marshall Alfaro, Waylon Francis. Holding, Jordy DeLem, Christian Roldan. On the right of midfield, youngster Henry Wingo from Shorecrest High School. Nicholas Ladero, Harry Shipp on the left. And Jordan Morris up top, yes? Oh, thanks. Just say it. You can say it.
Why don't
Matt,
you
do the bench.
Matt, do the bench.
Yeah, do the bench, Matt. Brian Meredith in goal. Nuhu. Svensson. Gustav Svensson, who just had his 3rd child last week. Alex Roldan. Mathers. Nagel, who stays with the Sounders after signing this week. And Will Bruin.
Excited that Brett Nagel's back. Very excited that Lamar's back. I think, he's 31?
Yeah.
And I think he's got things to offer on the professionalism side, the maturity side, and the understanding what Brian wants and a role that he can play. He will come in handy when we have the big, what do you call it, the fixture congestion.
Fixture congestion.
Yes,
If we get
yeah.
past Santa Tecla FC, we'll have 6 matches in 25 days. New faces, since we're doing a little bit of a season preview. Magnus Ikram, Waylon Francis, Jordan McCrary, we just mentioned, Hadwana Bawana, and Alex Roldan. Let's start with Magnus Ikram, Mr. Wade Weber. I find him to float across the field. It's kind of, I kind of like watching him. So I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to take you down a path where there's no way you could say anything negative about him because I really dig him. But anyways, what's your thoughts on Magnus Ikram?
My thoughts, Matt, would I think mirror yours, at least from what I'm hearing. Can play anywhere across the attacking midfield group. Is an exceptional passer, and if you go and watch his highlight video that was posted on SoundersFC.com when they signed him, you will see a guy who is all about timing, weight of pass, angle of pass, great vision, takes corner kicks and free kicks very, very well, which, again, I think this team, if you look statistically at their conversion on corner kicks, it's not great. It's not great given the number they have. Is that down to service? Is that down to attacking, et cetera? Those are different questions. But this is a guy who, when he's on the field, will take right-footed service. He will. He is that good. He's that level. And then, people say, well, how many attacking midfielders can you have? Well, if they're good, you can have a lot of them, right? You don't need a 9 if you have a bunch of guys that can combine and link and find the pockets. So I think Ikram is going to be a good impact for not DP price, right? Garth Lagerwey and Chris Henderson and Brian have to construct a roster that fits within the constraints of MLS's salary cap. And they didn't have to spend a DP spot on a guy that is, quite frankly, really, really good player.
Well, if you're looking at Ikram, he's going to play somewhat central. He's not a flying winger, right? So then all of a sudden it's a 4-2-3-1, pretty narrow. So it goes then to McCrary and to a Francis and a Nuhu and a Leardown when he comes back from injuries. How vital those guys are to accommodate the players that we have in those attacking mids that are pretty central. Is a guy like that going to get past the forward? Is he going to get past a Jordan Morris, a Will Bruin as a third man running to kind of change up the offense? Instead of everything being kind of flat along a line, can he break through and be that third man running on the blind side like players like Frank Lampard was so good at and has scored so many goals? Can he bring 10, 12 goals this year? Hey, that's another play. So you bring in somebody who's got the ability to score more goals, you tally all those goals up, again, that for me is going to get them to the first position.
Pete, your thoughts on Magnus if you've
Three
you've
things.
seen him?
His age, 27. I like that age. You're at a maturity. You still have a lot in your tank, engine-wise, and the experience that you have. He's won a lot of games with a lot of clubs, which I think is winning is a mindset. And when you expect to win, you typically win more often than not. And then I think he may be, from the clips I've seen, I've been to a few training sessions, I think he may be a little bit of a Gustav Svensson with a little more quality and maybe a little more impact on the, like Wade said, on the passing side. So, but I really like the maturity that I'm hearing about him in the locker room and from the coaches.
I think what's interesting as well, watching him play, again, just clips and hearing a few things, is going back to what Jordan Morris was with Clint Dempsey, a little bit intimidated. I don't think he will be, right? He seems a player that could combine with Dempsey really well. Lodero now feels good in his position. You got guys who are going to be self-confident. Rodriguez, same thing. When you see him get fit and healthy, as he was towards the tail end of last year in spells, how good he looked. You got players that can combine and are on the same wavelength, I think, as Dempsey, and that might elevate Dempsey's game as well and make him feel better.
The opponent for the Sounders, if the Sounders get by Santa Tecla, Chivas de Guadalajara up 1-0 in the 72nd minute. That's on the other match here this evening here in the round of 16. Couple lines from each of you on Waylon Francis, 27, comes over from Columbus 2 years back, 2 and 3 years ago. He was a regular for Columbus, very solid. Jordan McCrary, he's 24 years old, did not play a minute for TFC, had a couple matches. He will be, they will both be in the starting 11. Homegrown signing Hadwana Bawana from the University of Washington, and obviously Pete will mention Alex Roldan, who played for Seattle U. But Danny will start and come this way, but couple thoughts on each of these players.
I think the outside back, Waylon Francis, you and I called a game a year or so ago when they played Columbus. They pounded us for 45 minutes, and he was played at the halfway line as an outside back, and he dominated the first 45 minutes. If he can bring some of that offensive firepower to create balance the way that our team is set up, I think that could be...
It was Waylon Francis and Harrison Awful.
Oh, God, they killed us the first
They were
half.
on midfield when things started, and they just had us pinned back, didn't they?
Yep, and I think Jordan McCrary, I think, again, he's been dormant for a year. He's going to be excited to come back in a franchise like this. He's got a chance to prove himself with Leerdam out. And then Bawana, it's tough on a young kid. Preseason, mentally, physically, he comes in, he flies, he scores a couple of goals, then he kind of filters and kind of teeters away. That's normal for a young kid because it's hard. The stress and strain every day proving yourself, that's proof with him. I think he'll be another year or two in the kind of S2. Maybe you could speak to that better, Wade, but the S2 kind of like periphery, get some games, get some experience, bulk up, get strong mentally and physically. I think he'll be a presence at some point. The question is when.
For me, Waylon Francis is the most important thing for Waylon Francis is Nuhu. He was brought in, and there's competition. So Nuhu was sort of anointed, and maybe we thought O'Neal Fisher might be that other guy that could challenge Nuhu for left back. Well, now they brought in a left back, an MLS experienced left back, played an MLS Cup.
That's really all he does.
Yeah,
he plays left back. He doesn't go to right. He doesn't move forward.
Nope. A good athletic profile. Maybe needs to work on the defensive side. I think that might have been one of his defensive 1v1 ability in Columbus is maybe what made him expendable, a trade bait kind of. But Francis is an MLS quality left back. Now Nuhu is not just going to be given the job. He's going to have to earn it every week, which is what Schmetzer would want. McCrary, I think, serves a function. Again, the athletic profile is right. He's fast. He's strong. Technically, probably not. He's certainly not Leerdam. I think if Leerdam's fit, McCrary becomes backup. And he's younger.
Leerdam, the second he got here, he started the second game, and he didn't miss one.
Yeah.
I mean, you just put him in there. He was like the fourth starter of a major league team. He was just there.
That was a huge addition, by the way.
Yeah,
Leerdam mid-season with the issues we had with like 3 or 4 guys rotating on the right back, losing Tyrone Mears, that balance was gone. He came in and out of that bounce back.
Handwalla Bawana has some qualities that are exceptional. He's a creative player, slippery, elusive in his movement, deceptively fast, good. How does he?
Very, very competitive young man to the press, but he's very motivated. He feels that whole family's a great family. The oldest son, Caesar, is now with the LA Galaxy on the strength and conditioning side. They are a great family, and they are very driven to be successful. They are not counting that they've arrived in any way, shape, or form. So Alex could be a right back. When we looked at the lineup today, I was excited to see if maybe Brian put him as a right back for tonight's game, because I think he can handle that kind of assignment. He can be in the middle. We played the diamond for a few years, so he can handle that. He can play up front, and he can score goals.
He played right back last Thursday in Sacramento, and there were 2 matches, and the squad took on Reno in the first match at UC Davis, and he played 45 minutes at right back, and he fit. He fit. He didn't stand out the wrong way.
Yeah, he can adjust to that.
What kind of attitude? I don't know. Every time I'm at practice and you're there, we don't get to talk to Alex because you're talking with him.
I apologize.
So I'm joking. What kind of kid is he?
Great kid. He's like I said, he's very, very competitive. He's the kind of kid that when you get on a field, he was like a pro in college in that he would get after guys, and it kind of put them on their back heels, and we had to explain, hey, Alex is just trying to push it to be your best, and it took a while for the guys to get comfortable with that. So, and he will love playing for Brian. And then Handwalla, I think a lot's been said. I think the question is, can he handle the physical and pace of? I think he can handle the pace, but the physical part
He's a slight
of the MLS.
Kid,
yeah,
correct?
He scored a number of goals against us. I'm not going to miss. Talked to Jamie Clark saying, well, I'm super happy for Handwalla.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but I'm more happy for us. We don't have to see him for 2 years. And you know what? The one on Francis, I'll just say, talking to Garth Lagerway, he views him as a bit of a Jovan Jones type of thing. Revive your career, right? Jovan, with Chicago didn't quite get where he wanted to get, and I think Francis can look at that, and I think they've got him. Wade said it, managing the dollars. That's another one that they've picked up on a pretty good contract for the Sounders to keep room in the cap.
About 8 to 10 minutes left here before we are going to watch the Sounders take on Santa Tecla FC. Head to go90.com. Excellent quality on that stream. That's where we'll be watching Leg 1 in El Salvador. Again, next Thursday is Leg 2 on March 1st, 7 p.m. If you don't have your tickets, we'll all be there. SoundersFC.com. And, of course, the opener, March 4th, LAFC. That's going to be fun. 2 p.m. on Sunday. Who does anything on Sundays? Get all your chores done on Saturday.
Church.
That's my line. Well, after church, if you so choose, Pete.
Yeah.
Come down to CenturyLink Field after church, Pete.
I will.
2 p.m., LAFC, the opener, and obviously high-flying stars from LA headed this way, and we go and open their building later in the month.
I better go, by the way.
You've
put myself
made it public.
Yeah, I'm not touching this subject. My mom's listening from heaven.
Implode on the air.
We talked about some old faces, some new faces. How about some familiar faces, Danny? We hit on Morris, but to Wade's point about 15 minutes ago, 10 of 11 starters, 16 of 17. Garth is happy to tell you that because really when outside folks are saying, when are the DPs coming? When are some new faces coming? Magnus Ikram is here. But a team that went to back-to-back finals, and you've got 16 of 17 back. Jovan Jones, obviously, in Germany. Your thoughts on what the squad looks like right now?
Strong experience. They certainly have goals with Will Bruin, like we mentioned, 13 goals. Clint, 15 goals, 5 assists. Ladero getting on the goals, and so with Roldan, 7 goals each. I think it's a balanced team. We've got a lot of offensive firepower. Rodriguez to come back still from injury. I think that offensive half of the field is going to be interesting. Can they get going? Can they start flying? Since they've been playing together now for 12 to 18 months, they know each other. Last year was a slow start. We expected so much after Ladero, at that end of the year that Ladero had coming in, with Dempsey coming back in the team. It took a while to get going. I think the biggest question now is, can they get off to a fast start? It's hurt them in the last couple of years. They've been playing catch-up from June onwards. Can they get off to a flyer? I think the experience they have. Svensson, solid as a rock. Wherever he played solid. Marshall, Torres coming back, hopefully gets fit soon and can get back in the team. Fry, you mentioned, Matt, is a solid asset for this team. And then you work your way up that spine of the squad, as you mentioned, Wade, with Ladero and Dempsey and Bruin and Morris, laid down with experience on the right. Nuhu getting some experience with Francis kind of accommodating some experience as well. This is just an experienced team. Now Brian's question is, how do you kind of infiltrate that with young kids that can kind of add something as well?
Okay, before Wade, you start, slow start. 2 years in a row now. So March, April, May, 26 matches in the last 2 March, April, and Mays.
Yep.
Only 8 wins.
Yeah.
It's got to get better, Wade.
Well,
I mean, of course, it doesn't because you're making the
my
final. But everyone wants the better seed.
You want to
Five
host the
teams,
final.
That's right.
Yeah.
5 teams in the East were better than you in the West, so there's really no chance. You know you're going to go on the road. Unfortunately, it was bitter cold Toronto once again, but it didn't matter. NYC, New York Red Bulls, you were going to head east, so how do you change that start?
I don't. I'm going to say I don't think you have to. Yeah, of course you would love to host MLS Cup because you think that gives you a better chance of winning. The fact is, Timbers 3 years ago won in Columbus. Sounders 2 years ago won in Toronto. Yeah, the Sounders fell short last year. I don't think that's necessary. You have to get in the playoffs, and if this was not a Champions League year, if the Sounders didn't have this obstacle, then I would say, yeah, your whole focus is on that. But right now, let's win the Champions League, and let's manage the league, and let's get where we can get until the Champions League is done. Then let's go win a MLS Cup again. But looking at the fact that there's 10 of 11 back, our old friend Alan Hinton once said something. I'm paraphrasing, but as a team, you're never standing still. You're either moving backward or forward. And he was speaking in reference to new faces, that you want to bring new faces into the team. But what I think he misses in that point is it's not just the new face. It's got to be the right new face. That how many teams, Danny? You're our resident Englishman,
yep.
Right? How many teams like Leeds for many years?
Oh God, let's not talk about Leeds.
would bring in new faces, right? Because this is the guy, and no, he wasn't the guy. Just forget about him.
Mark Viduka.
This is the guy.
Yep.
No,
they write a check for $25 million and do it.
That's what I'm saying. That it's not about spending money. It's about finding the right guy. If Pete, they got Ladero, but they had to wait.
Yeah.
Are we happy?
Svensson the same. Bruin.
Are we happy with the fact that they waited?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that seems to be a bit of the MO, is that see how the first part of the season shakes out, and then in the transfer window in the summer, find that guy and bring that guy in to give the team a lift.
Leerdam.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Clint Dempsey, for crying out loud, was a
right.
summer transfer window guy.
Exactly. And I would also add, the thing about 2016, that horrific run we had that ended with Ziggy Schmidt leaving this club, Brian coming in. Injuries. Slight lack of depth, inability to execute with that depth coming off the bench and coming out of the squad. I think, to your point, was it 16 or 17 coming back? The depth of experience. Nagel, the experience coming in. What's Nagel? 15th, 16th guy, if everybody's fully fit, if that, can even make the squad. So I think that's the thing that is going to pull the Sounders through this year, is that level of depth and experience all the way through this team. LAFC, yes, they've got an exciting couple of players, Vea and Feilhaber and Zimmerman and a couple of others. But where's the depth? What's going to happen when they get nicked up in June and July? Are they going to have enough depth and push to get those guys through?
The two words I would add to that is understanding and the experience.
Yeah.
Because they've been through it. As you mentioned, 18 months this group's been together. They've had a lot of great successes, but they can also look at a game and say, hey, it's your turn to carry us. This is your game to carry us, and so they have that depth will help,
Yep.
But it's the understanding of here's where we are in the season, here's what we have to achieve, here's how we do it.
And this is a big year because when you think about age of players and the Marshalls of the world and Torres, yes, some of them are in their mid to late 20s, but some of them are creeping into their 30s, Ozzy and people like that. Is this, with the type of squad we've got from 1 to 18, is this the year that we can really push on all fronts and compete in Champions League, in US Open Cup, in MLS regular season and postseason? I think so. This is the year to do it.
We're moments away from heading over and watching the game ourselves on Go90.com right at 7 p.m. Leg 1, Sounders FC versus Santa Tecla FC. We just have a couple more minutes, so let's go around the West. If you have thoughts around the West, Portland obviously won the West with the tiebreaker, 53 points. They had more wins than the Seattle Sounders, but LA Galaxy, Wade Weber, aren't going to be that bad, and Ziggy Schmidt is having no problem, A, spending money, and B, getting rid of a few players. But if you have a few thoughts, either Portland, LA, Vancouver, LAFC, you take it from there.
Yeah,
Wade.
no, I think there's a lot of good storylines. Giovanni Savarese coming in and taking over for Caleb Porter in Portland is a big one. They achieved successes under Porter that were great. He helped fuel the rivalry with the Sounders, of course. But I think that LAFC has motivated the LA Galaxy.
Yes.
LAFC in town has
yeah.
motivated the Galaxy. They've spent a ton of money, and Pete, I think Ziggy is looking to hit again.
Yeah, I've had a couple conversations with him over the past couple months. He sees this as his opportunity to make his mark in the game, and there's a lot of questions. Hey, can he get it done? So yeah, I think you're right. I think that's competition is a good thing, and LAFC with all the glitz and glamour and the people that they have behind that team is pushing LA Galaxy. That's emergency on the Galaxy's
And we talked
part.
about that last year. San Jose, new coach, reworking of the entire roster. Can they be competitive this year? Vancouver, Tim Parker, the whisper is that he's going to get traded. He's eager to go. Kai Kamara, worked around all these different teams. I've always thought he's a good player in terms of a solid number 9. Can he execute for them as well? Colorado brought a bunch of English guys in. I think Mason from Wolves most recently. LAFC, as you talked about, solid back line. Tyler Miller in goal potentially. Zimmerman, Lawrence Seaman, Jordan Harvey left, Beta Shaw on the right. They've got a solid back line. Got Fail Harbor and Vea. And then Portland, who replaces Nagby? Because he's a vital cog of that kind of trio with Valeri and Ardi and players like that. Who are they going to bring in to replace that guy?
Danny, good to see you.
Good to see you too, man.
Wade, we'll see you down at Starfire. You're a busy boy.
Often.
Pete Fewing, we'll go have a beer here afterwards. We'll go
That
down.
sounds lovely.
We'll head into Ballard. Pete, Wade, Danny, great to see you guys. Thanks so much for listening as we look at the field, which is field turf. That was the concern, was the bumpiness of the field in El Salvador, but this is a nice field turf. Small stadium, holds about 10,000 people. At the death, Guadalajara just scored another goal, so 2-0 up, and they head home, so they're in great shape. That could be the Sounders' next opponent if they do get by Santa Tecla FC. For Danny, Wade, and Pete, my name's Matt Johnson. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Again, go90.com, where you can find the first leg, Seattle Sounders Santa Tecla FC. Next Thursday, we'll see you down at CenturyLink Field on March 1st. Your ticket needs at SoundersFC.com. Thanks, Ryan Shaber, for engineering, for everybody else involved. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.